Good evening and welcome to the Kim B. Davis Show. I'm your host, Kim B. Davis, and this evening we have one of our favorite guests, Dr. Angela Celeste May. We know her as our forensically, our clinically, and our organizationally trained psychologist. She is also the president and co-founder of AMA and Associates Incorporated. She is the president and founder of Celeste Productions Incorporated. And if that's not enough, she is an author, editor, musician. She was a columnist with the Michigan Women's Forum for Phenomenal Michigan Women. She was a contributor for the Michigan Chronicle, and she is included in the anthology Stars, Scholars Teaming to Alleviate Racism in Society. And in 2023, she was recognized as a distinguished psychologist and given an award from the Michigan Psychological Association Foundation Board. Welcome to the show, Dr. Angie. We are so happy to have you with us. How are you?
I am doing fantastic. Thank you. Always great to sit and chat,
Thank
chew
you.
the fat, as they say, chop it up with my favorite, Kim.
Well, we got a lot of fat to chew, so let's get right to it.
All right.
So we're talking election 2024.
Yes.
So, yes, it was disappointing, but not surprising.
Hmm.
This was an end that many of us feared because this country is as sexist as
Yes.
it is racist.
Hmm.
And out of this, a surprising phenomenon, I've seen this all across social media, Dr. Angie.
Hmm.
Black women saying, we're resting. There's a young man who put together this beautiful art piece where you have Black women sitting on the ledge of a building, sipping their coffee while the world is burning down. And many Black women I've heard from, because we've all had conversations,
Hmm.
I have all said the same thing. They're going to learn, they're going to find out. Dr. Angie, what are your thoughts on why so many Black women are saying we need to rest? Because, you know, many of us organized, many of us went door to door, many of us made phone calls. We did all the things that we were supposed to do. Unfortunately, as I said before, this country is as sexist as it is racist.
Yes. It's a lot. It's it's a lot. The history is a lot. The hundreds of years is a lot. I too have heard that, just as you were saying. I've heard a lot of that as well. But what I've heard is not just resting. I've heard, and you probably have heard this too. I've heard a lot of Black women saying, "I'm done." I'm
Mm-hmm.
not just resting, like I'm going to come back and dive back into
Right.
it. Like
Mm-hmm.
I'm done. I'm done.
Mm-hmm.
Um, it's completely understandable because as people
Mm-hmm.
say, Black women have been the backbone, definitely of the Democratic Party, but
Mm-hmm.
historically, if you go back to Lincoln days and all of that, when so many
Mm-hmm.
Black folks were aligning themselves with the Republican Party, the old Republican Party, uh, uh, same thing. There was a lot of Black women, unsung Black women, who were carrying the torch, doing the work. They were not the
Mm-hmm.
only ones, but again, just an army, and an army of Black women, and that work is powerful. What we do is very, very powerful and impacts the world. My responses, my reactions. Well, number one, like I said, it is understandable. Um, I think that people are, and Black women in particular, are feeling more exhausted this time, maybe than ever, because it was our first time having a Black woman,
Mm-hmm.
Southeast Asian as well, running. First time we've ever had a fellow woman of color, Black woman, who got the nomination. I mean, let's continue to give the kudos. She ran an
Yes.
amazing campaign. She did
Mm-hmm.
it in no time.
Right.
And as those numbers have the last numbers have rolled in of the ballots that were cast, it wasn't a landslide
Mm-mm.
on the other side, right? It was almost split down the middle,
Mm-hmm.
49 point something and 48 point something
Mm-hmm.
between the two. For her to have done that, and the entire team that she put together, and all those who worked to help put her forward, for them to have accomplished that in what, 3 months
Mm-hmm.
as compared to
100 in a few days.
yes, yes.
Mm-hmm.
As compared to this is one thing I want to remind people of who are feeling understandably weary, but more than that, you know, understandably disappointed. And some of that, I'm done. I'm just done with this. Some of those feelings come from feeling like, no matter what we do.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I know I'm not the only one. I've had more than one friend in particular. I've had friends just crying. So many people took this personally.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so a part of that exhaustion is for those reasons, but I do want to remind everyone, men and women alike, from all the coalitions who really worked hard on this, helping with this campaign from the grassroots on up, and feeling like we finally have an opportunity, not just for a woman, a Black woman, and a fantastic, brilliant, what is your most qualified candidate we've
Yes.
ever had. But I want to remind everybody that all of that backbreaking work, it did make a difference. You don't get someone running for 3 months from 0 to 60, because the zero is not that she hadn't already been out there, but remember, people kept saying she had to, and she said she had to keep reintroducing herself. She had to
Mm-hmm.
introduce herself. It was an uphill battle, but you don't end up in 3 months almost neck and neck, 50%, almost 50%, running against somebody who has literally been running for 4 years.
Yes.
Unless,
Yes.
that work shows that things were accomplished. So I think
Mm-hmm.
that is an important thing to keep in mind. And if she had more time, but it's understandable. I think the wind is taken out of people's sails, even more so because people, like I said, are taking this even more seriously, because it wasn't just about her. As you say, it's about Black women. It's about women of
Mm-hmm.
color. It's about,
Mm-hmm.
you know, always, no matter what we accomplish everything. No matter
Right.
who we support everybody. Um, still people try to take from us, or
Mm-hmm.
steal from us, or
Mm-hmm.
appropriate us, or
Mm-hmm.
all of that. And that scar tissue, gets to hurting. And after a while, it's like, you know what? Let's sip and have some coffee. Let's sit on the side of the ledge and have some coffee. Um, being an optimistic person myself, and knowing that there's always purpose, I I while I can understand it, I completely understand the sentiments. I don't really completely agree that we have to be done. I think some of that is said in the moment for a lot of
Mm-hmm.
people, not everyone. Um, Definitely people should take that rest. Definitely Black women should take that rest. I totally agree with that. But to say that for those who say we're done, we're on this ship together. And so our work, which we need to, again, just to remind ourselves, does make a difference. We
Mm-hmm.
had our first Black president in President Barack Obama, and he got there with work. We had President Biden, who got there with the work of Black women.
Mm-hmm.
If you want to go back to, you just keep going back, Clinton, and all of the rest. So
Sure thing. Mm-hmm.
absolutely. So I want to encourage Black women not to feel like that their work, their time, their energy, their sweat, their brilliance, their intellect, their talents, all of that it doesn't make a difference, because we have too many representatives in the highest places statewide and across the country, who were put there by the people as a whole, yes, and so much of that work was by Black women.
Mm-hmm.
So that's important to keep in mind. Um, but yeah, I can understand the tiredness and the exhaustion, and the when you were talking about the other thing that's been going around, of course, from all different folks, and that is they're gonna find out.
They're gonna
They'll
find out.
find out.
Mm-hmm.
They're finding out. They're beginning to find
Yes.
out already.
Yes.
Beginning to find out.
That's what I believe. I believe God is doing something in this country. And
Absolutely.
people are waking up to a rude awakening. Some of the auto workers are like, wait a minute. The deal that guarantees that we have jobs, that we have benefits, that we're able to get the parts that we need. Oh, and I
Mhm.
and I don't even remember which one it was, but it was one recently that I read, and the auto worker was like, "It's like a punch in the gut," and I want to say, "Now you know how we feel."
Yeah, exactly.
Now
Exactly.
you know how we feel.
How we feel and how our indigenous people of this country
Right.
have felt.
Mm-hmm.
Always the promises with the one hand and then snatching that away with the other hand over and
Exactly.
over again,
Mm-hmm.
over and over again. Oh, and I'm sorry, I just want to add
No, go
one more
ahead,
thing.
please.
Part of that exhaustion, definitely, I would say, is also, um, it takes a lot of work, even when you're winning.
Mm-hmm.
That's something people don't talk about too, as well. Even when you're winning, especially when it's Black women or Black people, Black women, um, when you see her winning, whatever that means,
Mm-hmm.
so much of those stories that are not told, that only the people in her intimate circle or in her life really know what it
Mm-hmm.
takes for her to win. So even when we're winning, it's mentally and emotionally and spiritually, it can be exhausting because of
Yes.
what we had to fight through.
Mm-hmm.
And so some of that exhaustion is also coming from what I'm sure you've heard as well. Some women say the "you all are going to find out" is attached to one gets tired of not being listened to
Yes.
when folks told you
Mm-hmm.
before. And
Mm-hmm.
why are folks not listened to? Because if you're being dismissed because you're a woman, you're being dismissed because you're a Black woman.
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
some of that resting on the ledge and sipping, that comes from, yeah, exactly. Let us sip.
That's it.
It comes that some of that tiredness is centuries worth of tiredness of, I'm going to stop pushing for a few minutes, and so that this
Mm-hmm.
apparently you'll learn better if you just see what it is that we've been keeping you from.
Exactly. You
Mhm.
know what, Dr. Angie, you bring up a really great point because I've heard other women on social media say, but I didn't vote for him. I'm with you. And, you know, we begin to have these conversations and the conversation around what is an ally. And a
Mhm.
good friend of mine said they need to be accomplices because an accomplice is somebody who gets in the mud with you. They
Yes.
start doing the work. An ally can stand off to the side and say, hey, you need me to hand you some gloves? You need a shovel? I got you. Here you go. And then step back and just stand there and watch you do all the work.
Mhm.
This is my opinion.
Mhm.
And so, guys, if you're watching this is my opinion. Kimberly Batchelor Davis. I don't like the idea of a blue bracelet from women saying, I'm going to wear a blue bracelet so that you know that I'm your friend or that you're safe with me. Because there were internet trolls. There was one woman who said, I want to get one of those blue bracelets and then go to Costco and watch some woman walk out. And then when she gets to her car, take my taser out and tase her and watch her roll around on the ground. Oh, this woman was extremely violent. And watch her roll on the ground, wet herself, and then turn her over and spray on her forehead, Trump won. And I said, you wrote this on social media. I'll give you one guess on what social media site. You don't even have to think that hard. You know where it came from. Um, that one that used to be called Twitter.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And so people started tagging it, saying Homeland Security, FBI. And I was telling someone, I was sharing this, and I said, this is the scary part because now, as you have often said, those that have been relegated to the back, those that have been relegated to the dark corners with some of their insane thoughts and beliefs that clearly are not true, now feel beholden. Oh, I can say whatever I want. And guess what? I've got law enforcement behind me because we've been told that law enforcement's going to have qualified immunity or blanket immunity, so nothing can happen. We're looking at um, our attorney general picks. We're looking at the Department of Defense picks, and I'm like, ooh, why don't y'all just call Bugs Bunny and Porky Pig? Because they might be a little bit more qualified than some of you all.
I was gonna say they don't need to call Bugs Bunny because he's smart.
He is
No
smart.
offense
He
to
is
those,
smart.
no offense.
And I
He's
wait,
smart,
wait,
crafty,
wait,
and
wait. And
knowledgeable.
you're absolutely right. Cause he's one of my favorite characters. So
Okay,
I
we
need
love
to
us
pull
about
back.
yes.
I apologize, Bugs Bunny.
Yeah.
I didn't
But
I
but
didn't
but
mean
you
any
said it
harm.
right. But you said it
Yes.
right because you said, why don't they call Bugs Bunny? Because he's a little more qualified. Yes, we agree. We agree. Yes, we agree. We agree.
um it is insane to me Because going back to Vice President Harris, she
Mhm.
served in all three branches of government.
Yeah,
She was
because
formerly
she's
an
Black.
attorney. Yes, okay, but she was formerly an attorney general of one of the largest states in the nation, California.
Yeah,
She was a United States senator.
yeah,
She is currently the sitting vice president of the United States.
yeah.
I'm sorry. What more are we looking for? Oh, that's right. We want somebody who embezzled money or is trafficking young girls. Oh, I did say that out loud, didn't I? I
Yes, you
meant it
did.
too.
You did. But it's in the,
That's
the accusations are in the public domain.
they are. They
Yeah, you
are.
didn't make anything up. But as we all have been doing this, the farcical nature of it all. You're absolutely right. I have said and felt the same thing as far as the the Lord shall not be mocked.
No, not at all.
And there's some things in both parties that I feel
Mhm.
that may perhaps have not been kosher for a few minutes.
Mhm.
And this is not a false equivocation because obviously one of them has gone just all
Yes.
over the clan cliff, just over the clan cliff. The
You said it
majority
right. It's
over
the
the clan
clan
cliff,
cliff.
the
That's right.
clan cliff.
Mhm.
There, yes, there are some around. Of course, we have to acknowledge there's some Republicans who are waiting for their old party to come back, who
Mhm.
are not down with MAGA. That is true
Mhm.
as well.
Mhm.
But uh, it was it's just unfortunate that it had to come through this way. But
Mhm.
one of the things that you and I have, we've talked about over quite some time, even completely separate from this election, and that is, unlike Germany and some other places, Germany always stands out
Mhm.
because they were so proactive. We know that the Jews as a people keep what happened during World War II front of mind. They
Mhm.
pass it down. They tell the story so that they don't forget all of the rest, and they want to make sure the world doesn't forget, which is
Right.
very very important. But I always highlight Germany as such an example because as a municipality, the
Mhm.
fact that Germany, I mean, they went to work. They put up monuments. They, made sure put laws in place. This wasn't going to happen again. Blah blah blah. That has made such a difference. And as we've talked about, our country here in the United States has never finished reckoning with our racist past, present.
Mhm.
Um, a big hindrance to that, well, one big hindrance to that has been because the South has been waiting to rise again, ever
Mhm.
since 1865.
Yes.
So it's something, the work and the blood, sweat, and tears to get us to move step by step a little bit further forward with getting civil rights that look almost equal,
Mhm.
almost kind of sort of closer. In our country, women still get paid less than men for doing the same work and sometimes even better quality work. Um, don't get as much on the dollar. We know that there's still discrimination in the housing, all kinds of things. But so much has been put in place to combat those things, industry by industry.
Mhm.
Some things federally, but as we know, we've never gotten, to my knowledge, a formal apology on
Mm-mm.
the federal level for enslaving our people for hundreds of years and all that came after. So
Mm-mm.
uh, I feel very confident. I'm sure of it. I am sure that one of the reasons that, dare I say, that it had to happen this way, maybe, is because people had to be, just like you were talking about, forced to reckon with our
Mhm.
racism, our prejudice against women, and
Mhm.
sometimes you just have to like step in it to really understand that this stuff is real and it
Mhm.
endangers lives. And we're all on this island together, so it endangers everybody's lives. And that's one of the sad things about people like that lady that you were talking about that had this hate rant.
Mhm.
Why do we teach our kids to forgive? It's forgive and forget. It's the right thing to do. um for other people, it's the godly thing to do, etc., and all true. And also it helps keep them from being eaten up inside and becoming bitter and hard, and that stuff turns in on oneself. A lot of what we're seeing with these hardcore MAGA people, like that particular lady, who are just spewing all this hate and all this, she's living, she's sitting in that stuff.
Yes. Absolutely.
And so that's just it's so for so many of them, for a few seconds, that's how the devil does. For a few
Yeah.
seconds, it looked like, oh, woohoo, good times are here again. And then, before it's not gonna go like you think.
Mhm.
It ain't gonna
Mhm.
go like
Like
you
you think.
yeah.
No, not
And
at
they're
all.
already finding that out. And
Mhm.
the hate and all that stuff. Yes, it's dangerous for other people, but that's just living in toxicity for themselves, and it's damaging them from the inside out.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. Yeah.
It's interesting you bring up that example because I have noticed that whenever, and especially on social media, because that's where I see it, where they capture these rants by
Mhm.
different people, they all have that same angry look. They're
Yes.
all screaming
Yes.
uncontrollably and just out of complete. And I said, "Is that a spirit?" But I bring that up because oftentimes Black women and
Mhm.
women in general are overlooked and
Yes.
undervalued.
Yeah.
We have a exaggerated case because the whole situation is exaggerated. I don't know a different word. If you have one, please share it, Dr. Angie.
Mhm.
In this Republican-led administration that's coming forward, I'm not saying his name. This Republican-led administration that's coming forward, you have our chief of the United States as a 34 convicted felon
Yes.
who people keep saying he can't travel. And Trudeau came to Mar-a-Lago to visit him. I got to research that to make sure that that actually is true. I'm not sure if it is or not.
Mhm.
He still has cases pending, although they are going to be dismissed and waived until he gets out of office, but we'll see what actually happens. Um, he has been found guilty of rape in the E. Jean Carroll
That's right.
case.
Well, liable because it was
Liable, liable. Thank you, thank you. That is the difference. It's a distinction.
Mhm.
Liable, but when you say liable, that means something happened. In
Yeah,
my
exactly.
in
Exactly.
my thought,
That's right.
there was a commercial that I saw before the election, and it said "Psychos for something," or
Mhm.
s- or, but essentially it was an anti this person ad, and
Okay.
this woman, beautiful blonde woman,
Mhm.
shared her experience in Mar-a-Lago. She said, I was there for an event.
Mhm.
She said, I ended up in a room. He was there. He walked over to me and pushed me up against the wall. She said, I couldn't get away and I was trying to get away.
Mm.
And he fondled her.
Oh my
He
gosh.
kissed her and I guess, tried to touch her. And
Mhm.
she said, and I went, ooh, this is something. And when I saw it said psycho or anti-psycho something, I have to
Mhm.
find it. I thought, wow. But my greater question is this. You have clearly the scale is not balanced. And
Clearly.
as a woman, as a Black woman, how do we build ourselves up so that when confronted with mediocrity, and we're seeing it in
Mhm.
the different picks that are being chosen, people that have no affiliation, no expertise, not
Mhm.
even credentials to be in
No.
some of these positions.
Well, and not to interrupt you,
Uh,
but beyond
yes,
that, most of them have backgrounds that are disqualifying, that
yes,
actually disqualify them, including Trump.
yes,
You
yes,
can't join the army with a record like his.
exactly,
All of it's disqualifying
right.
people. Absolutely. Which is why he doesn't want any background checks, because he doesn't want these people to be investigated because they're
Hmm.
not qualified.
Exactly.
But yeah.
So,
Mhm.
as the Black woman or a woman in this country, we are seeing the rollback of DEI where people are saying, oh, we're making it equitable for everyone. I'm like, you don't know what that word means. As women, we still have to occupy different places.
Yeah.
And men are going around chanting,
Your
your
body,
body,
my
my
choice.
choice. Yes.
Mhm.
And so women across the board are feeling the pain of men wanting to control them. And Black women equally are feeling the pain. I think even more so because many of us, as it has been statistically proven, Black women are the most educated
Mhm,
of all ethnic groups.
mhm,
We are the most entrepreneurial
mhm,
of all ethnic groups.
mhm.
And we are constantly told, well, nobody's going to marry you because you're too masculine. You're not feminine. We've done all the things to
Mhm.
make ourselves successful, to make ourselves more marketable, to still be told you're just a woman. How do women protect themselves mentally, Dr. Angie, in such a toxic environment?
Oh, wow. That's an excellent question, a very important question. Um, Well, I often answer questions like that you ask, not whether it's about Black women or whomever,
Mhm,
that whole
mhm,
idea. And it's so important that you continue to raise that, um, whether it was mental health around dealing with COVID or whatever the case
mhm,
is, that self-protection is extremely important,
mhm,
to take care of ourselves and to teach each other, to do that as well. Um, so I often start with history, looking at and encouraging people. I would encourage Black women to look at the victories.
mhm,
And I think it's extremely important. I don't think it is extremely important to start as a place to start, um,
mhm,
with looking at the victories because it combats the tendency, it combats the lie, it combats the gaslighting and the okey doke that uh, will quote unquote will never get
mhm,
will never get even in Jim Crow. When those stories that we're just now learning about, when I say just now, like in the last few years,
mhm,
multiple stories, more is there's more that we don't know about, of all of these wealthy
mhm.
towns built and run by Black men and women,
Yes.
that were burned down
Mhm.
by, I'm just going to say, jealous,
Yes, it
threatened,
was.
absolutely jealous and threatened white folks. Are
Mhm,
white folks all jealous and threatened? Of course not. There have been those who've marched with us and lost their
mhm.
lives, fighting for civil rights. Absolutely.
Yes.
We want to say that. But looking at the history that even in the worst of situations, in Jim Crow, which was before my time, that's no
Mhm,
joke.
mhm,
Those Jim
mhm,
Crow laws were no joke.
mhm.
And there were atrocities, of course, sadly. But
Yes.
even in the worst of times, we got things, we didn't just survive, we got things done. We built middle class. There's always been a Black upper class. There's always been an African American wealthy segment. Um, so these jealous and threatened white folks, they didn't go after the other towns.
Right.
And when I say, well, they didn't go after other towns, meaning people who non-Black towns,
Yep.
non-Black
Mhm.
nations,
It
dominant
was
nations,
just about us.
just
Mhm,
about us. And also, they did not go after Black towns that were not well off. That
mhm.
they were small, they were rural towns, etc. But for us to have built and then rebuilt, like built
Yes.
up again,
Mhm,
when we're not
mhm.
just talking about Black Wall Street, that
Rosewood, there are towns
yeah, who's the
all
one that's
across.
all across,
Yes,
the one that's
yes.
buried underwater.
That's, Oscarville, Oscarville in
Yes,
Georgia. It's Lake
yes,
Lanier. There's a whole
yes,
town, because it was a valley,
yes,
and they wanted that land because they didn't want Black folks there, and so they told them, they said, "Either get out or, we're gonna
yeah.
kill
They
you,"
flooded
and
it.
they flooded it, and people actually did die because they didn't leave because that was home for
Absolutely,
them. There
absolutely,
are lots of places that are like that. There
absolutely.
are universities that
Yeah,
are built on stolen land from
that's
Black
right.
people.
Absolutely. And speaking of the whole educational sector as well, um, there are universities built by Black women
Yes.
and men to give us an excellent education because of we weren't let into white institutions.
Right.
So
Right.
that the whole legacy of HBCUs, historically Black
Mhm.
colleges. So in science and engineering, we're still learning. about
Mhm.
all these Black folks who invent, Black women. We have,
Mhm.
we have aspects of the internet and Google Maps and stuff. I think it's because of a Black woman. Just
Yep.
we have to remind ourselves and teach the others and teach the next generation about all of this brilliance, invention, creation. We have Black psychologists all in every field, in
Mhm.
every field, so that it is an armor against feeling like, no matter what we do, no matter what we do, the devil is still a liar.
Absolutely.
But
Absolutely.
which is that part's true. But no matter what we do, not no matter what we do, because we do, because we've built though and rebuilt and been accomplished in every field and had things to pass down. Um, so that's really important. That is really important. And to let that just be a daily mantra as an
Mhm.
inoculation against feeling like, no matter what. Well, that's not true. Um,
Mhm.
and then along those same lines, something else that can be helpful too is, looking at the things that sustain us.
Mhm.
uh some of the hurt and pain that we are hearing from Black women, like you say, across social media and in our lives, who are saying they're tired or they're done, all this kind of stuff. I'm not trying to say that Black women are trying, well, first let's back up. We do want to be careful to make it sound like Black women are a monolith,
Mhm. We're
because
not.
we're diverse, of course.
Yes.
There are Black women who think they like Trump.
Yes, they do.
They think
Along with black men too. Yes.
exactly.
Yes.
That is
Yes.
true. So we
Yes.
are speaking in broad
8%.
generalities. Yeah,
Eight
right.
percent of 8% of black women, and it's either 82 or 84% of black men voted for Harris. So that's about what, 16%. So it could be 16 to 18% of black men.
Right, right. Yes, that's true. So yes, there's some diversity within our
Mm-hmm.
group, as with any group. Absolutely, it
Mm-hmm.
must be said. But for many, the majority, then perhaps of Black women who are feeling hurt and weary and all of that, which is, remind yourself it's understandable, and all of that, and acknowledge that. But also, not trying to say that Black women are trying to like be accepted by someone else in order to feel validated.
Mm-hmm.
But however, the core of the fight for equi- eq- equitable treatment and civil
Yes.
rights and all of that is so that everyone in society and in our country can have, access to these inalienable rights that are written into our Constitution.
Mm-hmm.
um, and so because of that part, it's understandable, I say, to Black women in general, it's understandable to feel that exhaustion from feeling like we're always being trying to be cut out of those inalienable rights,
Mm-hmm.
no matter how hard we work to make sure everyone else has them. So that's why when I hear Black women saying, in this post-election season, I hear them saying, you know, we're always fighting, and Black folks, we're
Mm-hmm.
always fighting to, help everyone else. Part of that, I'm going to step back now. Part of that sentiment, part of that those statements of, I'm just going to sip my coffee for a while. From what I have heard, also has to do with the fact that if some of our Asian brothers and sisters are fighting a fight, that we
Mm-hmm.
jump in to help. And if some of our, what am I trying to say, Jewish and
Mm-hmm.
Palestinian and, whomever it is, that
Mm-hmm.
we jump in there and try to fight. But when we need folks to, help fight for Black folks and for Black women, we can feel like, well, where is everybody? It's
Right.
tumbleweed.
Yeah.
It's Wild West. There went a tumbleweed just went by. So
Mm-hmm.
that's understandable. That is understandable. But for that, I would, again, how do we like help inoculate ourselves from feeling like it's just for naught? And, no matter how hard we try, remind yourself of who does fight with you.
Mm-hmm.
And for some women, the majority of the people that they see fighting with them are fellow Black women.
Yeah.
then then we should do this anyway, of course, but then hug and honor and celebrate and be excited about fellow Black women, and
Mm-hmm.
then take your marching orders of wherever they should be. When I started this answer by saying, thinking in terms of like who are we beholden to, or where do we get our marching orders from? As a Christian, everyone's not a Christian. Many of our Black American women are Christians.
Mm-hmm.
If you are a Christian, if you are a believer, or if you are someone who ascribes to a higher power, and you feel that that is the core and the priority, the first priority of the way you live your life,
Mm-hmm.
my personal response as a Christian Black woman is, yes, it's exhausting, and yes, it's disappointing, and but I'm not going to stop fighting unless the Lord tells me to stop. Like my fighting,
Right.
my orders
Mm-hmm.
come from beyond the foolishness.
Mm-hmm.
The
Mm-hmm.
way I fight may be different. When I fight may change or may not.
Mm-hmm.
So I feel like when people talk about center yourself, center yourself. A lot of people talk about centering yourself and as a helpful thing, so that we can take care of ourselves, so that we're not overly exhausted, so that we can geek ourselves up again. For my generation, we geek ourselves up. Um,
Yep.
so that is important, but recognizing why we're fighting
Mm-hmm.
is key.
Yep.
So I would say, to summarize, so timestamp, just go to that part where she get on with it. She gets on with it. Remind ourselves of our history and the multiple victories that we're always winning. Some of
Mm-hmm.
those victories take a decade, some take 20 years, some you may not live to see. But
Right.
what is one of the favorite things that Black women like to say? I am the wildest dream of my
Mm-hmm.
ancestors. They may not
Mm-hmm.
live to see it, but many of those people died knowing that, you know what, I may not see it, but it's gonna get better.
It's gonna get better.
It's going to get
Mm-hmm.
better. So for our
Mm-hmm.
younger generation, or as an example, well, how is it any better? Do you have to stare at the ground, at the floor, at the ground when a white person walks past you? What? You never heard of that before? Let me tell you a story. When you get
Yep.
on the bus, do you have to walk to the back? And I mean have to, or you will get kicked off or arrested. What?
Mm-hmm.
Well, you know what I'm talking. So
Black bathrooms, white water fountains, black water fountains.
all
Mm-hmm.
of that, and for those who say, as some do, that some say that integration wasn't really that great for Black folks because we had so much of our own, because we didn't have a choice. So we had our own doctors and our own dentists and all of that. Thriving is wonderful. um, it's true. All that thriving is wonderful, but some people, as you know, feel that
Mm-hmm.
by integrating many of those Black professionals and active hubs of activity, etc., uh, went by the wayside or were gutted because of
Mm-hmm.
integration. That's not all in their minds. Some of that, so unfortunately, some of that is true. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
but we never stop building. We never
Right.
stopped building, and we should never stop build. So
Mm-hmm.
remind yourself of the history, remind yourself of the things we have accomplished and continue to accomplish. The fact that we even had a vice president, my soror, Harris, in the
Mm-hmm.
first place, this is what, we're over 250 years old in this country now, right? In this iteration
Mm-hmm.
of the country.
Mm-hmm.
The fact that we had our first Black and Southeast Asian woman who was the Democratic nominee of a party that comprised nearly 50%
Yep.
of a predominantly white country.
Mm-hmm.
Let's call that a victory. Like,
Right.
so
Mm-hmm.
it's important to not miss the victories along the way, because the throwing over the hands, I know it, I understand. It feels like, yeah,
Mm-hmm.
well, we never, what we never get. But
Mm-hmm.
knowing where we get our marching orders from, fight as based on what your values are, fight based upon what you feel is important. Remind yourself that you are valued, and that we do keep building. We have never stopped being successful. And then I think the last thing I would say too, um, again, like, as a Christian person, we're supposed to do one of the hardest things, which is love our enemy. We're
Yep.
supposed to actually care for people, um, who may not necessarily care for us, because one of the reasons is because that blesses us. You
Mm-hmm.
reap what you sow. Some people call it karma from other belief systems. It's the same universal principle. That's one of
Mm-hmm.
the reasons it'll bless you and yours. And then also, um, we are needed and we are brilliant, and that's one of the reasons that we're here.
Mm-hmm.
That's actually one of the reasons that we are actually here. So tying it back into your purpose, but just, hug ourselves, surround ourselves with each other, with all of that, reminding us who we are, reminding us we make a difference, reminding us that we do continue to build community, reminding us that when we work, it may for our, for others, it blesses us and our own, reminding ourselves that we continue to be successful, and then get to going. Get to the strategy. And that might mean holding back for a few minutes.
Mm-hmm.
Because we know with kids, for example, sometimes it is better to let them stumble, even though you're there to kind of catch them, but let them stumble a little bit, because there's some things they just are going to have to learn that way. And that's,
Yeah.
like you said, that's where we are in the country right now. And
You
so,
were stumbling like toddlers.
stumbling. Stumbling. I have to just throw this in there. People ask the question. I've heard a couple of journalists ask this question, tongue in cheek, and it was what I was thinking. Because you were talking about
Okay.
cabinet picks of the incoming.
Republican-led administration.
There you go. Thank you. What shall we say? Is he just trying to choose molesters? Is it? It's like
That's what it
he
looks
went to the
like.
molesters club. Hey,
Right. Everybody has
what?
a sexual assault charge.
Oh my
Mine,
God!
and they're all minors. I said, so you are the pedophiles that you've been railing against. You talk about yourself, but you
That
remember your
that
mama
part.
and your grandmother would always say, baby, don't listen to what people say, because usually when they talk about you, they talking about themselves.
So.
Oops, did I say that out loud? I sure did.
Yes, you
Mm-hmm.
did. You can say
Mm-hmm.
it again if you like.
I shall. Your mama said, and my mama said that when people talk about you, don't listen to them because it's not true. Typically, they're talking about themselves.
Themselves. Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly. So yeah, there it is. Oh, honey, it's a painful thing. And well, I know we just have to wrap up. I just, we could do this is
It is. It is. One more question. One more question.
okay,
This is
okay,
our
yes.
last
Do you want
question.
this?
Because that was really great advice, Dr. Angie. That
Oh,
was really great advice. So I have started minimizing how much time I'm on social media, because, of course, after the election, I sort of ran to social media just to gauge what people were saying. People were angry, other people were cheering. I was getting angry and I was getting anxious. And I said, let me pull back, let me minimize, let me watch happy videos and not
yes,
necessarily all the political. And then I started seeing the videos about people harassing people. And, I was ready to roll up to some town I'd never heard of before. And I'm like, okay, this is just too much.
yeah.
Will you talk about the positive aspects of taking a break from social media just for your mental health sake?
Oh my goodness. Yes, it's so important. And in any times, and definitely in these times after the
Yes.
election. And absolutely, it is extremely important. My grandmother used to say thoughts are things.
Mm.
And this whole she said that years ago. And in this day and age, we hear people talk about manifesting this and manifesting all that.
Yes.
There's a lot of power in thoughts and words. And in terms of our mental health and social media, um, what we feed our minds, what we
Mhm.
put into our brain, the things that we take in, they do have an impact. They really do have an impact. And even to the point of I know you've probably heard some of this. If we talk about our kids who are still developing,
Mhm.
people under 25, yes,
Yep.
22-year-old, you're still developing. But especially our younger kids that, too much time on the screen in general, even if
Mhm.
it's not social media, it rewires the brain. That's
Yes.
how powerful it is and can be. So if you add to that negative content from social media, um it's just you just inundating your brain and your mind, and all of those things are attached to the rest of the
Mhm.
body. So
Mhm.
we have specific centers of the brain and the parasympathetic nervous system and the autonomic nervous system and all of that, the way we're designed, that reacts to um being overly stressed and negative content and things that, like you said, make you anxious and everything. So
Mhm.
it is important to step away from social media, even if you're looking at positive things. Positive things can be helpful,
Right.
but just putting the screen down, period, it helps you reconnect with the real world in a more concrete way.
Mm-hmm.
It helps you to appreciate the real world in a more concrete way. And other things too about just that whole addiction. Excuse me. I myself had to remind myself, like, oh, put Angela, just put it down for a while. And I just walk
Mm-hmm.
away, put it down. So it is important to give our minds are amazing, machines, our brains. Our brains and our minds, we are designed in such an amazing way. We're creative. We have our own thoughts. We have our own ideas. If you have the habit and you keep going to social media to get answers, to get ideas, there are other people's.
Yes.
That doesn't mean it's got to be a bad thing necessarily, but
Mm-hmm.
we need to step away from social media just like you did to hear our own thoughts.
Mm-hmm.
And it's
Mm-hmm.
amazing how exciting it is to reconnect with your own thoughts. And what
Mm-hmm.
you if you consciously do what you did, if you consciously said, I need to step away from social media for a little while. Um, I've had I teach psychology courses at the college level, and well, I had created this stress management thing that I had done as under my business for coaching,
Mm-hmm.
stress management for Black men specifically, of course. So what I did was I tweaked it and turned it into an assignment for my college students.
Mm-hmm.
And so what I asked them to do was to just pick a goal, and it was a 2-week process where they chose a goal and then they kind of like marinate on it before they actually did it. And what I wanted them to look at and to contemplate without trying to change anything, just
Mm-hmm.
contemplate
Mm-hmm.
their thoughts around that particular goal, what their emotions were, those kinds of things, and then they would write about it, etc. And I had a couple of students who chose less time on social media
Yeah.
as their goal, and it was so
Mm-hmm.
fascinating, and it was such a growth opportunity for them, how they individually wrote about how they found themselves reconnecting with family,
Mm-hmm.
reconnecting with friends, catching up with people even in their own households.
Mm-hmm.
Because that time, they getting reconnected with hobbies and drawing and some things that they love to do and reading that they had gotten away from because they didn't. And this is what happens with all of us.
Mm-hmm.
You just don't realize just how much time you're wasting by being
Yes.
on it. And now some might say that, well, I learned stuff on social media and I laugh at some things on social media. That all has its place. But the problem becomes when it takes up so much of our time, again, like I was saying, then that you're enjoying someone else's work, creativity, thoughts, ideas, whatever, and where are yours?
Mm-hmm.
They're producing. What are you producing? What do you create?
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
it is important to give our minds a rest, to give our brains a rest, to reconnect with ourselves first and then reconnect with the people around us and our hobbies and things we love to do. And so that is very important that you did this. And I will end with this to go
Yes.
back to what you were saying about, asking about advice for people who are feeling exhausted and tired and everything.
Mm-hmm.
The stepping away from social media, it also helps you to come out of the fight or flight
Mm-hmm.
state, that
Mm-hmm.
fight or flight part of our nervous system. There's something called, uh, what is it called? Generalized anxiety syndrome,
Mm-hmm.
GAS. Generalized anxiety syndrome is when your body, your nervous system goes into the fight or flight mode, which is, we're designed for that so that we can deal with high stress situations. And
Right.
then when it's fight or flight, right? Or do we fight? Do we flee? What do we do with, depending on what's going on, how we're threatened or challenged? And then when that stress situation is done, our bodies are designed where we're supposed to step away and then everything comes back down to like normal.
Mm-hmm.
GAS, or the generalized anxiety syndrome, happens with too many of us when you get into that fight or flight mode, but then you stay there because we weren't designed to
Yes.
stay there.
Yes.
And you begin to fray your nerves after a while, and you get, after a while, you just become exhausted.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Mm-hmm.
whereas social media can be a fun outlet, you can look at some fun things, you can do some shopping, you can look at some kitty cat videos of dog and laugh, and that can be wonderful. But putting it down also can help you get out of that fight or flight and come back down and just rest
Yeah.
and go for a walk and just enjoy nature and peace and all of that. So it's very, very, very important that we all do more of that. And when you first wake up, don't pick up your phone. Like if you want to check what time it is, maybe if you don't have a clock there. But other than that, like give yourself a good hour, make a rule. Let's put concretes around it. Give yourself like an hour or two. You may
Mm-hmm.
have to check email because of work or whatever, but try to consciously work on not letting that devolve into going into checking other stuff. Give yourself some time of peace consciously away from it, and you will find that you have more peacefulness in your life. I guarantee it.
That is a wonderful way to end our podcast. Thank you, Dr. Angie. You always bring us so much good advice and information. We appreciate you.
Thank
Before
you.
we get out of here, tell us how we can find you on social media. Tell us how we can reach you, and then tell us what you have coming up.
Well, thank you. Thank you for asking. Well, as far as finding me on social media, I do believe that I am going to extract myself away from former Twitter. I think I've made that decision
Okay.
because I'm barely on it.
Hmm.
And with Elon Musk coming into office, is that what he's coming into? But anyway,
Yeah.
you can find me by my name. I don't have a stage name or anything like that. So either Angela Celeste May or Dr. Angela Celeste May. You can find me on Facebook, my on Facebook, and I have two Facebook pages. So Dr. Angela Celeste May is my music page, and or Angela Celeste May. You can find me on Instagram, same name. You can also find me at AM May Associates on Instagram, and that is our Instagram with my sister Michelle May, who is my business partner for our company, our counseling, consulting, and coaching company. You also can find AM May Associates on Facebook as well. So those two for sure. What else? Social media, I am on LinkedIn, also Dr. Angela Celeste May, and I have a YouTube channel, which is Angela Celeste May, which I predominantly talk about music stuff. I've recently started doing a few more videos. I'm going back to doing a few more videos in my music genre series. I've had some subscribers who've asked me, to continue and answer some cool questions. So I am there as well. Um, let's see. You
Hmm.
may have, if you have purchased my book, Freedom. What is the experience of living without negative self-imposed limitations? This was released on Ex Libris, which is XLIBRIS. That's the publisher. You can find this book on their site as well as on barnesandnoble.com and on Amazon. This was a book in which it was my master's thesis, and people had asked me to publish it. And so I did a few years ago. And basically, it covers how you get from feeling stuck in some part of your life, whether it's work, family, whatever the case may be, to getting unstuck, thus the name Freedom. And 7 themes came out of the interviews that I did with several people. So they are wonderful, I think fairly universal themes that we can use and grow from for that. So yes, you can find that. My music is on Reverb Nation at Angela Celeste May. It's also on iTunes as well. So the albums I have released. And what else? What's coming up? If you are in the Detroit area, we are celebrating our 50th. The city of Detroit is celebrating our 50th Noel night. It's a tradition around here every year on the first Saturday of the month. Detroiters come, we come from all over and come into the cultural Wayne State University Midtown area. And it's just a wonderful family friendly day of celebrating the arts, from music to dance, all kinds of wonderful things. So I play violin and viola with the Violin Divas, which is a
Hmm.
recreational string group that my sister started many years ago, several years ago. And so we have been performing at Noel Night every year for a number of years. So we come and see us if you like. We're going to do a 45-minute set at the Detroit Institute of Arts, DIA, in the lecture hall from 4 p.m. to 4:45 p.m. So
Nice.
yeah, so we're going to be doing that. And next year I will be traveling. We have some cities and some cities added to the traveling. So I'll be singing and traveling. Next year we'll be as I told you before, in New York,
Yeah.
um, the Thursday before Easter. We are going to be, I'll have to get dates. We're going to be Kansas City, Kalamazoo in March, I think it is, Kansas City in May. And so my brother will be drumming and I'll be singing. And this is all for Heather Buchanan's book. and the music that was written.
And what a great performance. I
Oh,
love watching you. It was a great
oh,
performance.
thank
Everyone
you.
did an amazing job, including your brother. But
Yes,
it was a joy to see you really
thank
get into
you.
that part.
Thank you so much, and thank you for coming. I was
You're welcome.
thank you. So yeah, so that's what's on the horizon. I continue to teach psychology courses at Wayne County Community College District, and private piano and voice lessons as well. So if you want to contact me for lessons or for performances, etc., you can do so at Celeste, which is CELESTEMUS1, short for music, at AOL. I'm sorry, Celeste MUS1. I said that right, at AOL.com. So you can reach out to me there or at any of those platforms that I mentioned. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Angie. You know, we only have one more show. We're heading into December. And
Yes.
so it is the end of 2024, but we're looking forward to an amazing 2025. We have one more show in December, guys. So
Yes.
Dr. Angie is going to come back before the end of 2024, but I had to say that because I'm like, we're almost at the end of the year.
I know. I know. Wow. There's
Yes.
more good stuff coming.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So
Definitely.
we can't wait for you to join us on our next episode to give us some more great information and advice on how to live healthy and be at our highest selves so that we can be the best for all the people that we love.
Absolutely.
So thank you guys for tuning in to the Kim B. Davis Show. You know me as your host, Kim B. Davis. You can find me everywhere on social media. I'm on Facebook, Instagram, Snapchat, TikTok. Yes, I'm still on Twitter, but not really. I'm on LinkedIn. I'm also on Blue Sky. We all left from Twitter and went to Blue Sky. So I'm on Blue Sky. I'm also on two other apps called Spill and Fanbase. Spill is SPILL. Look for me. It's Kimberly Bachelor Davis. Bachelor is spelled BATCHELOR. You can see this show at youtube.com/ Kimberly Bachelor Davis. You can hear this show at Apple, Spotify, Stitcher, Google, Wisdom, and Audible. You can also learn more about me as an author at kimbdavis.com. Thank you for tuning in. I hope you'll join us on our next episode. And as always, remember, be magnificent.